Leli lungelo lakho mnganami.
Leli lungelo lakho.
Mnganami.
Leli lungelo lakho.
Mnganami.
Leli lungelo lakho.
Mnganami.
Leli lungelo lakho.
Uhlale kahle.
Leli lungelo lakho. Leli lungelo.
Good morning, colleagues. My name is Faith Ndenze from Parliamentary Communication Services. Welcome to today's joint media briefing of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts and the Special Investigating Unit. I'd like to introduce the chairperson of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, Mr. Nkuleko Hlengwa. Seated next to him is the head of the SIU, Advocate Andy Mutibi. And on my right-hand side, it's Mr. Alflis, members of the committee, Ms. Alexandra Bukas, Mr. Sakum Zisomyo, seated next to her. Behind them, it's Ms. Benedicta Van Minen, and next to Mr. Somyo, it's Mr. Mzwanele Manyi. Without wasting any more time, I'll hand over to the chairperson of the committee to start the briefing. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Justice Faith. Good morning, colleagues, Babum TV, and welcome to this briefing this morning on the SIU. Colleagues, it's good to see you. Mazamba Mrs. Nasagwas, it's good to see you, and Honorable Buke, it's good to see you once again. Colleagues, I'm battling a bit of a cold, so I hope I'll be audible. I just want to preface our briefing this morning by saying that as the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, through Section 55(2) of the Constitution, read together with Rule 2451 of the National Assembly rules, we are mandated to conduct financial oversight over all organs of state. This includes, among others, investigating and reporting on matters pertaining to maladministration, malpractice and corruption, which often stems from procurement irregularities, poor record management, as well as weak leadership and governance in government departments and entities. In an effort for the committee to hold those who are responsible for misusing the state resources and money accountable. In conducting the oversight mandate to strengthen accountability and consequence management, SCOPA has been receiving updates from the Special Investigating Unit on proclamations relating to maladministration, malpractice and corruption revealed by its investigations at state institutions. The committee has been particularly concerned by the lack of consequence management and delays in prosecutions, all resulting in the failure of the state to recover monies owed to it. During the 6th Parliament, and at the height of the Zondo Commission of Inquiry into allegations of state capture, corruption and fraud in the public sector, including organs of state, this collaboration was further strengthened by an agreement reached by the committee and the SIU in 2019, in which the parties agreed that SCOPA will refer various cases to the SIU for investigation as the committee so deemed necessary. The committee has also identified with concern that once the SIU investigations were concluded and reports were filed, they needed to go back to the originator of the proclamation, the presidency, because implementation did not reside with the SIU. Moreover, the presidency could not keep track of how the SIU referrals were implemented, as they often languish in government departments and state-owned entities without any action being taken against those responsible for wrongdoing. The committee therefore initiated a process with the presidency of developing a matrix, a monitoring mechanism for the implementation of reports for the purposes of processing, to ensure that whenever a report is submitted to the affected department, entity or municipality, it was implemented for disciplinary intervention and any other recommendations contained therein. This processing mechanism was of paramount importance because some reports dated back to 2001, implying that Without implementation, the hard work that had been conducted by the SIU would amount to fruitless and wasteful expenditure. This intervention has, amongst others, resulted in state-owned entities such as SCOPA and Transnet restricting suppliers implicated in SIU investigations on their own suppliers' database. The collaboration between SCOPA and the SIU has resulted in the commissioning of some of the following investigations. The National Skills Fund, following its third consecutive disclaimed audit outcome in the 2020-2021 financial year from the Auditor General of South Africa, the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure Prestige portfolio in its entirety, ESCOM Intelligence report commissioned by ESCOM's former Group Chief Executive on allegations of corruption and financial mismanagement at the National Power Utility. This does, of course, does not include the other ongoing work that we have been doing with the SIU. The SIU has achieved significant recoveries through combining quality investigations with civil litigation. There have also been numerous recommendations for disciplinary action, referrals of evidence for prosecution, and for regulatory sanctions such as blacklisting and recommendations for systemic improvements. With the shared objective to guard the public purse and to scrutinize transactions made by state institutions, SCOPA has resolved to formalize the collaboration with the SIU in areas of mutual interest, particularly in the investigation and consideration of matters relating to irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure of public funds, and the implementation of prevention measures and monitoring activities through the signing of memorandum of understanding, setting out the terms and conditions upon which the parties will cooperate and support one another. The purpose of the MOU is to identify the roles and responsibilities of each party as they relate to reviewing the expenditure of public funds by scope of any organ of state, and to pool resources to strengthen financial oversight and consequence management related to such misuse of public funds. More importantly, the signing of the MOU assists for the formal referral of certain pressing matters from SCOPA to the SIU, as the SIU does not investigate specific matters, identify rather specific matters to investigate. Matters referred by SCOPA to the SIU for investigation or for motivation for a proclamation include, as I've already said, the ESCOM intelligence report. A steering committee consisting of 2 representatives of the parliamentary administration acting on behalf of SCOPA and at least 2 representatives of the SIU will oversee the management and implementation of this agreement. So for those who are wondering, it's not a political process. There's no interference by us. It's an administrative process to allay the anxieties which may reside in certain quarters. The steering committee shall, amongst others, be responsible for the drafting of project or activity-based terms of reference, setting out the timelines, deliverables, costs, and any other necessary information required for the successful completion of the identified tasks. All terms of reference are to be approved by the chairperson of the committee and the head of the SIU, and will be subject to compliance with any financial prescripts if applicable. I repeat, and will be subject to compliance with any financial prescripts if applicable and where applicable. I conclude by saying that both parties acknowledge the importance of consultation, mutual support and cooperation on aspects such as disclosure of information, reporting, and mutual cooperation and assistance to ensure effective financial oversight and accountability of state institutions, thereby combating maladministration, malpractice, and corruption of state resources, money, and assets. So that is the broad framework and summary of the Memorandum of Understanding, and it now gives me great pleasure to hand over to the head of the SIU, Advocate Andrew T.
No, thank you, Honorable Chair and honorable members. We really appreciate this opportunity. The signing of this memorandum of understanding, as the Chair indicated, that is a process that was considered from 2019 on, and this being the appropriate framework that would ensure continued referral of matters to the Special Investigating Unit for consideration and processing for investigations. So this marks a significant moment to the Special Investigating Unit indeed. Our mandate as the Special Investigating Unit derives from the legislation that regulates our work, principally the Special Investigating Units and Special Tribunals Act 74 of 1996, which mandates the Special Investigating Unit to investigate serious maladministration, malpractice, and corruption. But of importance, the legislation and our act goes further, that anything that would harm the interest of the public. So it's very important to note that the legislation goes wider to say any other act that would harm the interest of the public would then be the mandate of the SIU to investigate. As we do that, we of course get various reports from whistleblowers, from government departments. We also get from Auditor General of South Africa, state institutions, and of course the SCOPA, and that we do look into those reports and consider in accordance with our legislation, and where appropriate, then process through to the President for President to sign the proclamation. As by law, SIU can only formally investigate once the proclamation has been signed. The MOU really signifies a framework within which SCOPA will continue, and I think it's important to note, will continue to refer matters to the SIU for investigation. As the SIU, it is important that we guard the public purse, which of course is the interest of SCOPA in ensuring that the public accounts are really not put in jeopardy, and that we need to ensure that the public interest in that regard is protected. The collaboration speaks to matters envisioned in the National Anti-Corruption Strategy, which involves taking the whole of society approach in the fight against corruption. So this really goes a long way in ensuring that as a country, the National Anti-Corruption Strategy is implemented. The whole of society approach includes every aspect of the society, government, and all other spheres of government, including the legislature. Parliament and SCOPA, as are of course one of the arms of government, play a critical role in ensuring that the interests of the public are protected and that the fight against corruption continues unhindered. We look forward to strengthening the relationship or the collaboration with SCOPA to not only investigate cases of corruption, maladministration, and malpractice, but also to implement consequence management as we move forward with developing and implementing corruption prevention measures. The SIU, as required, frequently reports to SCOPA on matters related to investigations, including matters related to state capture. Through the intervention of SCOPA, the presidency has developed a tracking tool to ensure that government departments and state institutions implement the SIU referrals or recommendations and ultimately consequence management. And those referrals are, but amongst others, the referrals to ensure that there's disciplinary action taken against those officials who are implicated in wrongdoing, referrals to National Prosecuting Authority, of course the recoveries that SIU also recovers through High Court or Special Tribunal. Through the Special Tribunal, the SIU not only recovered money linked to state capture, but has also protected the public purse from further bleeding at the hands of those who conduct or are implicated in maladministration and also malpractice and corruption, and of course those who are still furthering the state capture. The SIU has successfully set aside irregular and unlawful contracts between ESCOM and Tegeta, saving ESCOM and in particular South Africa from losing 2.7 billion rands. As part of implementing the SIU investigation outcomes and consequence management, the SIU has instituted civil litigation matters in the High Court and in the Special Tribunal amounting to 64 billion. And this would be the values of the contract that the SIU seeks to set aside and ultimately recover the money lost by the state due to corruption, maladministration, and state capture. The figure mentioned includes an amount of 54 billion, which are the contracts to procure locomotives contracts awarded by Transnet. It also includes 3.7 billion tender awarded to Tegeta and 2.2 billion tender awarded to ABB by ESCOM. Needless to say that the ABB matter has since been finalized, and there has been significant recoveries of more than 1.6 billion from civil proceedings. And on the criminal proceedings side, we are aware that the NPA has also recorded significant recoveries. The SIU has reached a settlement agreement to the value of more than 33 billion with multinational companies that benefited from state capture. To date, an amount of 5.3 billion was paid back from the settlement agreements and savings from reviewed contracts. The figure includes 1.6 billion paid by ABB, as I indicated, 178 million paid by EOH, and 244 million from SEP. I think it's important to note that on the civil proceedings side, the settlements, and as we always say, any company that reaches out for settlement would have been on the basis that they admit the damages that the SIU seeks to recover, and in that way we obviate the need to go to court and thereby save legal costs. But of course it's important to note that we always indicate that that does not exonerate these companies from any other consequence, either from criminal proceedings or any other area of responsibility. The SIU has not only recovered money linked to state capture, but has also protected the public purse from further bleeding at the hands of those who continue to perpetrate acts of corruption and maladministration and malpractice. The SIU has successfully set aside irregular and unlawful contracts between ESCOM and Tegeta, saving South Africa from losing about 2.7 billion. I think we've said that already. As we conclude, another significant outcome of SIU work is the systemic recommendation to state institutions. Systemic recommendations continue to be the implementation of the National Prevention Framework, monitoring of consequence management, and also it is important to note that SIU plays a role in enabling SCOPA generally to monitor the acts of maladministration, malpractice, and also ensuring that consequence management is meted out. So through this MOU, which has got various provisions in it, and of course there are those provisions, of course also identifying the role of SIU and of course the role of SCOPA in that way, ensuring that each entity executes its mandate without being hindered. This will ensure that the implementation of SIU recommendations by state institutions are monitored and reported on. The signing of the MOU is important to the SIU. We really look forward to the impact and results it will deliver in our mission of striking against corruption and to a corruption-free journey that is envisaged in the National Development Plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Advocate Mtili. I will take opportunity now to hand over to members to make comments. I just want to stress one provision of the MOU which says anything performed under this MOU will be subject to the applicable legislation, policies and standard operating procedures of the parties and/or any other terms and conditions as may be agreed upon between the SIU and SCOPA. So I think that is important, particularly to highlight the obvious, that we will maintain the separation of powers, functions and responsibilities, but at the same time harness the realities of cooperation and collaboration. I'll now hand over
Kumganam.